Nick, what do you think about
Yeah.
seeding in the East? Because I think it's interesting to watch this. The Nets loom, and it's interesting to see how these teams
Mhm.
jockey at the end. I mean, all these teams are. I think it's what, four teams are bunched up by
It's insane.
a half
It's
or
insane.
a half game
Yes.
for first place. And I
The
just wonder that last week of the season, are we going to try to avoid the Nets? Like each team, they're going to think that way because typically you want the one home court and you're facing the eight, but now it's like, am I getting the one seed to face Kevin Durant in the first round?
It's gonna be tough too because the Nets are, what, 3.5 games back of the 6th seed where the Raptors are right now, and the Raptors have
Right.
played relatively well. They won 8 of their last 10 games, so they're playing good basketball. They're actually 4.5-point favorites against the Celtics tonight, which shows you, how good they've played. I know it's at home, it's in Toronto, but fo 4 teams are within a half game of the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. It is going to be, look, it's going to be an unbelievable finish down the stretch for the NBA in these last few games. It's mostly in the East, obviously, because the Suns have a 9-game lead over Memphis, and Memphis has a 4-game lead over the Warriors. There's some jockeying on the back end there between the Timberwolves maybe jumping ahead of the Nuggets. Like I said, maybe the Jazz falling down if they continue the slide that they're on right now. But what the NBA wanted was more intrigue and more excitement and more question marks like this at the end of the year when they created this play-in tournament. And they obviously originated it from the bubble and then said, let's try it again. And it worked. And LeBron wasn't happy, but everybody else was happy. And this is one time where the NBA is like, sorry, LeBron, we're not going to listen to you because this is really awesome. You're just upset because your team's in the play-in game. So when you have teams like even the Bulls now, think of the Bulls. The Bulls are only, let's see, they've got a 2-game lead over the Cavs right now for the 5th seed. So the Cavs can still jump back up. The Bulls can fall down with the way they're playing. The Bulls have been atrocious defensively, and that was one of the things that helped Chicago at the beginning of the season was they were good defensively with a lot of guys on their roster that don't normally play defense. But that's fallen off now. The Cavs have certainly fallen, but the Hornets can jump up. The Nets are hot. The Nets have Kyrie back. 6 of the last 8 games of the regular season for the Nets are at home. To have Kyrie Irving back now playing in home games at just the right time, that's a major boost for this team. We are going to have, I think, one of the best finishes in the history of the NBA playoffs in terms of positioning at the end of the regular season. That was very wordy, I know. Probably could come up with a better title, but it just came off the top of my head. It's going to be, it's just going to be, it's all about the Eastern Conference and the way this is going to finish over the next few games. And yeah, there's no question teams are going to be looking, going, do we want to see the Nets in the first round? Because we know they're better than the 8th seed. They haven't had a full roster together the entire time Steve Nash has been the coach there. This is a team that should be competing for an NBA title with just Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. I don't think Ben Simmons plays this year. What it seems to me is that the Nets are constantly, and I'm not saying they're faking or lying about an injury. They are being cautious about a back injury that you should. And there's also the mental side of this. I'm a big believer in the mental side of sports. And when you
Yeah.
hear somebody like Ben Simmons say he wasn't mentally ready to play for the Sixers. Well, of course you weren't, because you knew that you weren't wanted there anymore. It was an incredibly awkward relationship that should have been ended a long time ago. There's a certain point where once you've said the things you want to say about somebody you're dating, and it's all out there, and you've just let all that word vomit come out, you can't take back those words. You can't say you were drunk. It doesn't matter. You said those words that were there. Now, Ben Simmons made it clear they didn't want to be in Philadelphia. There's all that tie, and we know the story. But to bring Simmons back now, let's say the last 2 games of the regular season or 3 games into a playoff series, when he hasn't played all year, and it's with a new team that he has no on-court game chemistry with yet. Chemistry matters, especially in basketball. Like, you've really got to develop that when you have stars and when you have ball-dominant players like Kyrie and Kevin Durant. And look, Simmons will get them all involved. He makes the Nets better long-term because he's a great defender, because he's a great playmaker. But it doesn't make sense this year for them. This move, you've got Simmons locked up contractually for years to come. Make sure you get him right, and he's good to go and has a full offseason and training camp and preseason with this team next year. And then just let Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, who should be good enough to carry this team to the NBA Finals. It's going to be a harder path because of where they are in the standings. They're going to play tougher teams right off the bat. Like, I mean, who knows? The Celtics or the Heat or the Bucks right away for them. But that team is good enough to win those series and still get to the NBA Finals because of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving.